Shkoyach everyone for coming. So of course, I'm hardly an expert in Breslov Torah, but the good news is that nobody is. So I'm in good company. It took me a while to be able to really tap into Breslov Torah because the way my mind works, it strives for control, like to try to understand things. And Breslov is a very different type of learning. Rebbe Nachman is a whole different type of universe, and it's not cognitive, discursive understanding. I mean, obviously, it is involved, because you have to understand what the words are saying and stuff. But what Rebbe Nachman is aiming for is not something to understand. Rebbe Nachman is not looking for something just for ideas to understand. Rebbe Nachman is looking to sort of let the mind go and be in that world of the Baal Shem Tov and the power of the imagination. The mind... We won't get, in epistemology, there's a whole philosophy of mind. The hardest book, by the way, of Rav Soloveitchik, since we're in Teaneck, Rav Soloveitchik's hardest book is called Halachic Mind. I can't make my way through it. Epistemology is the study of all different types of mind, which of course starts from Kant to really Immanuel Kant, to discuss different types of mind, and you could spend years. Rebbe Nachman is not into any of that. Rebbe Nachman is imagination. What's imagination? Imagination is none of the intellectual exercises of the mind. Imagination is what we have as children. And when we sleep, and in our unconscious, which is why it's more of who we are than we're usually aware of. That's why imagination is really a deeper expression of self, which is what psychotherapy comes from, and all different types of healing, to come into the unconscious, because imagination is when you're not confined into the constrictions of intellect, of Chabad. Chabad, as Chachma Bina Das, as wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, is capturing the idea, understanding it. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya, chapter 5, says to understand something is like eating something. When you eat it, it becomes your body. When you understand it, it becomes your mind. I understand it. I grab it. I control it. I'm tofes. I'm holding on to it. Breslov is the complete opposite. Is letting go and finding God there in imagination. Because Rebbe Nachman held, it's not, Rebbe Nachman, and I don't like to say the word held because that sounds very Litvish. Rebbe Nachman brought to the world the light of the Baal Shem Tov in a place that's above entering the confines of intellectual discursive understanding. Because the Baal Shem Tov is Emunah, right? The Baal Shem Tov, what's Baal Shem Tov? Baal Shem Tov is the revelation of God's essence, right? Chassidim, we believe Chassidus isn't just another part of Torah. Chassidus is the revelation of the essence of God in the most revealed way. It's the light of Mashiach. So the Baal Shem Tov could only be contained in a way of the soul which is higher than intellect. Again, intellect, when I say intellect, I mean our rational understanding, ourselves. Intellect, when I say intellect, I mean my mind. Right? We know ourselves from our mind, from our Chabad, right? Who could quote me the most famous quote in all of philosophy that says that the way we know ourselves the deepest is our mind?
I think that...
Right? Cogite ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. What's I think, therefore I am? The first revelation of soul is thinking, is mind. Right? Chochmah. That's why very interesting, Keser, which is Emunah, the Zohar calls Emunah Keser, it's the Atar, it's the crown of the soul. So in Dikduk, recently I've been meditating a lot, Dikduk, in Hebrew, and Dikduk is, if you try to, for me at least, I have the type of mind that trying to learn is like the most annoying thing in the universe. Am I recording this? Yeah, I thought somebody told me to record. Okay. So, it's really annoying to learn, unless you're an accountant or something. But really the truth is that Dikduk is the secrets of reality, is the secrets of Kabbalah. The Ramchal has a whole sefer of Kabbalah explaining Dikduk, right? It's like, Dikduk, what is Dikduk? In Hebrew, what are vowels in Hebrew as opposed to in English? The vowels, the vowels that we have in Hebrew. Kamatz, Pasach, Tzerei, what are they? They're not letters, what are they? Sounds, and what does sounds mean? How to open your mouth, right? How to open your mouth. So it's like almost like musical instruments that really, you don't really have to understand what you're saying. Your soul is moving your lips And the movements of the lips is godliness being shined into the world. Because, for instance, like kamatz and pasach, so they all correspond to the spheres. Kamatz is keser, pasach is chochma, tzeire is bina, segol is chesed, gvur is shva. So let's say keser, for instance, is kamatz, right? Kamatz, oh. How do you make the oh sound? As opposed to chochma, which is pasach. Oh, pa. Kamatz means closing the mouth. Oh. That's keser. Pasach is ah. It's opening the mouth. And all the vowels, each vowel, every time you say a letter in the siddur, it's the secrets of Kabbalah. Every vowel, every time you move your lips, it means something. So, why is Kabbalah, why is Pasach, Chochma, ah? Chochma, bin and das are the Reishis is Galus HaNefesh, the beginning of the revelation of the soul. As opposed to Keser, Emuna is higher than revelation within the soul. Kamatz. It's still closed. It's still ayin. It's still nothingness. Chochma is yesh ma'ayin. Chochma ma'ayin timotzei. Pasuk says in Iyuv, Chochma ma'ayin timotzei. Chochma comes from the ayin of the soul. So Chochma is a yesh. It's an opening. It's revelation. Higher than Chochma is imagination. And the Rambam writes clearly, and this is Pasha fundamental to approach Breslov. I'm not just saying this as a cute introduction. I just Pasha to understand, because like I said, because for me it took a long time to chap what Rebbe Nachman wants. So the Rambam says clearly that, Nevuah, which we're all waiting for Nevuah, right? We're all waiting for prophecy. We know that the prophet Amos says that one of the signs of prophecy of Mashiach is that we're all going to be prophets. I'll pour out my spirit on all flesh, and your sons and daughters will be prophets. We're all going to speak the words of God. We're all going to have God in us. So the Rambam says in Moreh Nevuchim, in the second part of the Guide of the Perplexed, which part of the mind is most important for prophecy? How smart do you have to be a prophet? It's not about being smart. Which part of the mind do you need for prophecy? You ever read the prophets? What part of the mind are they talking to? Imagination. Visions. What are visions? What were the prophets seeing? What were they seeing? It was their power of imagination. Visualization. That's why a lot of it doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. Rebbe Nachman is the light of the Baal Shem Tov, not going down into Chabad. Rebbe Nachman Breslov is kamatz, is the world of keser, is the world of the crown, is the world of imagination. So like Rebbe Nachman will say, for instance, that when you clap by davening is a bechin of Eretz Yisrael. You're in Eretz Yisrael when you clap by davening. So you could try to understand that, like they say in Yiddish, von heim bis morgen, from today to tomorrow. It's not an understanding type of thing. Rebbe Nachman was rectifying imagination to prepare us for prophecy. That's why Rebbe Nachman speaks a lot about tikkun koyach hamadame, rectifying the power of imagination. Because, as you all know, the power of imagination is also the greatest source of impurity. Right? The highest light always fall to the darkest darkness. So imagination is that part. It's the scariest part of the mind, because it's the hardest to control. And that's why it's so much easier, so to speak. It's not easy, so to speak, per se, but that's why Judaism so much usually focuses on seichel, understanding Torah, learning Torah, keeping the mind focused. Because imagination is very, very dangerous. It's dangerous territory. So Rav Kook speaks a lot about the fact that that's why when the second Beis HaMikdash, when did what the scholars, the academics like to call rabbinic Judaism, the transition from prophecy to rabbinic Judaism, right? Biblical Judaism to rabbinic Judaism. I'm sure you're all familiar with this, right? I mean, you read the words of the prophets, you read Nevi'im, and then you read the Gemara, and it's like two religions. It's like right? Which is why, throughout the generations, people were wary of Tanakh. Because Rav Kook says it was much more safe throughout the generations. What kept us grounded is learning, is Torah learning. And that is what keeps a person grounded. That's what brings God into you, into your Chabad. That grounds you. And Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, the Tanya, which we're not going to talk at length about, but what the Alter Rebbe revealed to the world is the opposite of Rebbe Nachman. The Alter Rebbe wanted to take that light of Mashiach, that infinite light of the Emun of the Baal Shem Tov, that's completely beyond understanding, and understand it. Tanya is the revolutionary idea of bringing that infinite light of Emunah, of the soul that's beyond intellect, and understand it. That's Chabad. Breslov is the opposite. It's letting go. So when you learn Breslov, what we're looking for, and again, so I forgot to, and so Rav Kook says that throughout the generations, the sages, our Chazal, were very much, we stressed understanding, Torah learning, cognitive learning. But Rav Kook says that's why the generation in Orot, Rav Kook writes in Orot, it's fascinating, he's writing this in the 20s, 1920s, I'm still in the 20s now. 100 years ago, Rav Kook wrote in Orot that's why the generation before Mashiach comes, the imaginative faculty in the world, in secular society, is going to be so developed. Arts, theater, literature, all these things, obviously movies and stuff, and until this day, it becomes more developed. In previous generations, their mind was never as stimulated as much as we are just walking down the street once in Manhattan, right? Because the Rav Kook says the deeper meaning of that is because we have to once again arouse that part of the mind of the seed of prophecy to prepare for Mashiach. That part of the mind that's beyond intellect to be able to receive the prophecy of Hashem. So Rav Kook says that's why it's important to now work on art in a holy way. That's why Rav Kook, that's what he spoke about when he opened up Betzalel. In Yerushalayim, Rav Kook was the one that pushed that there should be an art school, a Torah, because Betzalel, of course, is the one that built the Mishkan. Because Rav Kook held that in the generation before Mashiach comes, we have to use those faculties, the imaginative faculties, the super rational faculties, right? The intuitive. The philosophers, the German idealists, call it intellectual intuition. Intellectual intuition. In other words, the part of the intellect that's intuitive. Art is releasing, is going beyond, transcending what I know, what I could grasp. That's what art is, right? Music, it's not understanding. If you sit in an opera or a symphony and you try to understand something, you're going to get very frustrated very quickly. That's why people that, you either relax when you listen to music or you have no patience to listen to music. Because to be able to really listen to music, you have to let go. You have to let go of mind and you have to be into the music. So if you can't get in that space, then music could be really annoying and you have no patience for it. But if you can get into that space, that's what it means. You relax your mind. That's what art is. Art is relaxing the mind. That's why in philosophy, in Hegel and Schopenhauer, the mind is always considered there's science, art, and religion. Science, art, and religion, which is understanding, right? Is science. Art is beyond letting go of the mind. And religion is God that's even beyond that. That's beyond negative theology as well. So the point I'm just making is that when you learn Breslov, it's not so much like, you're looking to have an understanding of a whole system of philosophy, like in Chabad, for instance. In Breslov, it's more resonance. It's more imaginative resonance. Rebbe Nachman wanted to begin that rectification of prophecy now of imaginative resonance. So when he tells you that clapping, when you clap when you're in davening in Eretz Yisrael, he tells you when you breathe, right? He has a Torah where he speaks about how the lungs are like the kruvim on the ark in the Holy of Holies. That the two lungs are always blowing, the heart is on fire, and if it wouldn't be for the heart, Rebbe Nachman gets very physiological. Rebbe Nachman talks about breathing and the circulatory system, digestive system, mamish, right? He talks that the lungs, if they weren't blowing air on the heart, then it would be burned up, and so too, like the kruvim, like the cherubs in the Holy of Holies, on top of the ark are blowing, this whole like imaginative thing, and I remember like years ago, I used to be like, what the heck does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's like reading a poem and saying, what does it mean? A poem is specifically not supposed to mean something per se. It's supposed to be beyond. No, it means something, but it's not supposed to be understandable per se. It's supposed to be speaking to you on a level that's deeper than understanding. It's supposed to touch you. You're supposed to feel it. It's supposed to be a resonance to it. So, Likkutei Maharan, when you learn Rebbe Nachman, that has to be the approach. And the reason I'm saying it, because just like I said, I'm not an expert in Likkutei Maharan, but I think I understand at least, which is sort of an oxymoron, but that's okay. But I think I don't know if I should say understood, but I finally accepted the ability to let go enough to not try to understand it in the way that we're used to understanding, but really try to have a resonance with it, what Rebbe Nachman is saying as points. That's why his sefer is not in any order. Likkutei Maharan has no order. That's why we're starting with number 64. There's no order in the book, as the opposite of Tanya. Tanya is literally built very structured. You could spend 50, 60 years, and people do, trying to learn Tanya again and again to understand the structure and deeper layers of understanding that the Alter Rebbe puts in every single word of Tanya. Because again, the Alter Rebbe is his shita of Chassidus is bringing the Baal Shem Tov into intellect. So it's all structure. Into what Kant would call the categories of understanding. Right? But Rebbe Nachman is the opposite. Rebbe Nachman is to let go of that. Rebbe Nachman is, and therefore there's no order. There's no order to, it's like Bechlal Torah. Someone would say to you, how do you start learning Torah? What do you start with? What's the first thing you're supposed to learn when you learn Torah? It's a ridiculous question. That there's no beginning and end. What do you mean? Is it Bereshit? Is it Shema? Is it Teretz Ivlanu Moshe? Is it Mosakar no Shema? I mean, we could go on and on. Because Torah, there's no beginning and end. It's infinite. Again, the Alter Rebbe wants to make structure. Chabad is making structure, which is, by the way, also sociologically. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but you understand sociologically the difference between Chabad and Breslov comes out from this epistemological difference. Think about it for a second. Breslov tells you run out to the forest and talk to God for 3 hours. Chabad tells you go to India, open up a Chabad house with all the laws of the land and speak in the language over there, and have a suit and tie and within the world to bring God. The Rebbe held you have to bring God into the world, like the Alter Rebbe said you have to bring God into intellect. It's on purpose. It's the same idea. It's to bring the infinite into the finite. So the Rebbe held to bring Mashiach brings to God into all these places in the world. Right? And Breslov is the opposite, run away from the world. It's very hard to be a Breslover in the city. It's much easier to be a Breslover in Tzvat.
Excuse me.
Yes.
You asked us to focus on the image.
I didn't ask you to focus it. I asked you to open it, and we'll get to it soon, Mitzvah Shem. I didn't speak about it yet.
Okay, because I'm curious to know what all those things mean.
All right. So therefore, that's sociologically the difference also between Chabad and Breslov. That's why there is such a difference in the way they act, in the behavior, in the shita. And it's mamash, that's the idea. Is it focusing on going in that place of infinity, or is it bringing the infinity into the finite?
So the bottom line,
Yes.
what? Is Chabad or is Breslov what we're looking for in the end? Like it's the revelation of God and where we see God, like talking in the forest or learning Tanya. Like
Everything you said is true. It's all true.
Yeah,
Let me ask you, when you say, what is the bottom line? Where do we
How do we
find
connect
God?
to
How do we
Hashem?
connect to Hashem? You tell me.
So I learned a lot of Breslov. I love
Listen, I don't know.
I think
Yeah.
that wherever you feel,
Uh-huh.
where you see
Uh-huh.
something,
Yeah.
that's what it's real.
Exactly. Beautiful. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, because that's the ultimate truth. Because none of us are card-carrying anything, and we're right now looking to connect to God in different ways. Because we're changing types of people, and there are different ways of serving Hashem. Baskin Robbins offers 31 flavors. There should be at least that many ways to serve Hashem. So I remember when I was a young man, 16, 17, I had an audience with the Amshanav Rebbe, so sein gesund. Remember the Amshanav Rebbe? Amshanav Rebbe in Yerushalayim, as far as I'm concerned, is the only, living real tzaddik, like that. Tanya talks about a tzaddik today. So I was able to meet with him for 45 minutes when I was a young man. I had a yichidus with him, whatever. Very interesting, very intimidating, holy person. Anyway, I could talk about him for a long time, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because I had a few questions, and one of the questions I asked him is that, by the Litvische places, they're very into finding a derech. And I felt like I didn't find like any particular, I was like sort of oscillating. And so I asked him if that's okay. And he said, yeah. He said 100%. He said, that's not, in today's generation, we're not, we're exposed to so many different types of things. So it's hard to like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? When it comes to the secular world, we're exposed to so many different types of things. Like why, when it comes to Chassidus, can't we be exposed to many? So the point, the bottom line of all of this is to show that there are different ways of approaching God. And you could do different ones, different times of your life, or whatever you might be feeling at that time, but to appreciate that there's a way of and they're all Chassidus, because what's Chassidus? Chassidus is allowing all of us to be able to feel God, right? No matter what level you're on, that's what the Baal Shem Tov, that's what Mashiach is. Like we said before, that everyone will be prophets. So Chassidus is the light of prophecy. So in that feeling God, there are different ways. There's Chabad, which is a philosophy to understand, right? Which changes you in a very deep way. I personally, in my humble opinion, there's nothing that changes a person like Chabad Chassidus, because it's so, it is the deepest of the deep, and you could understand it. No matter how smart you are, you'll never come anywhere near to finishing understanding how many levels there are to Tanya and to Chassidus Chabad. So it's literally no matter how big your brain is, fill it up with God's infinite light. Or there are ways where I want to say, I do just want to go out to the field. I don't want to be in the city. I don't want to find God in my tax returns. I want to go out to Montana. So, and then maybe there's a way for be a Breslov, which is more about, meditating how your lungs are God and your kidneys are God. And that's what I'm saying. Rebbe Nachman is a lot more, he talks about nitty-gritty stuff a lot more, because he wants you to see God in everything, in an imaginative way.
Right, but you're saying imagination, but imagination, how we know it's true? Because the imagination could be utopic.
Could be what? Imagination?
Utopic could be...
Could be what?
Utopic.
Topic? Oh.
Yeah, whatever.
Utopic.
Utopic?
Yeah, I'm saying imagination is
Okay.
imagination, right? So
Okay.
I could be imagine something, but could be not real. Because your head goes far.
Well, let me ask you a question. They say in psychology, who said they disagree? Grace, you want to say something?
What I'll say is that, and I think this ties into what you do, is that anything you imagine is true. And in fact, if you focus on it long enough, it will manifest into your life. The thing is, we have the intellect telling us that's not possible, that's irrational, that's a ridiculous idea. And sometimes there are imaginations we don't.
Let's try to focus.
Sorry.
So what Grace is saying is true. In other words, that it depends how you're defining what's real.
Right.
In other words, why if my head, and this is why I was saying psychologists will say that part of therapy is sometimes having positive visualizations in the mind. Visualize yourself at the beach. Visualize yourself as a child. Visualize yourself hugging yourself as a child. Is it real? I don't know. Why not? Who said it's not? What's real? Why is your thought less real than the table? Who decides what's reality? Whether I could bang on it or not? Like, what makes something more real? Is love more real than the table? Why is imagination not more real than the table? They say in Eastern traditions say that Lao Tzu, that there was once a king that had a dream that he was a butterfly. And when he woke up, he wasn't sure if he was a king that had a dream of a butterfly or he was a butterfly that was currently dreaming that he's a king. So it's really hard to know what's reality. And that's exactly what, all of Chassidus is that. All of Chassidus is changing our reference point of reality. Because all of Chassidus is to reveal the truth of only God exists. And our eyes are not real. What our eyes are seeing is not true. To shatter the illusion of separateness. There is no separateness from God. That's an illusion. That's just because our physical eyes are blind. So Chassidus is like that, right? So what's reality? The reality, the way we see the world, is not real. So imagining the way the world is, really, imagining, focusing, picturing how the world is God, actually changes the physical world. Because that's not less real than the world. Chapter 33 of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says, believing in the truth of Einam Avadeh, picturing, visualizing how the world is one with God changes the objective world, because our thoughts are not less real than the world. Which is, by the way, why in Judaism we're very much into thoughts, right? There's many mitzvahs are thoughts, imaginations, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It might not necessarily be, the full might not be imagination, it could be a learned gut feeling. Like it could be a gut, something that gets you internally, it doesn't have to be external. To learn it, then you just know that that's going to be, you just have a knowing, internal knowing.
An intuition. An internal knowing. We could sit here, Ellie, and speak for about 4 hours, and all of us will describe it in different words. Because it's something that's beyond words. So we're all trying to describe something that's not describable. Whereas my friend Ajahn Sona, the abbot of the British Columba Monastery, says, we're trying to F the ineffable. Yeah, Regina, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, I remember when you were speaking with Rav Raz and you guys were talking about what Chabad versus Breslov and trying to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying Chabad is obviously Chochmah Bina Dat, and then Rav Raz said is it Chagas, or the middle sphirot? You're saying it's Keter now, but
Chagat. So here's the thing.
just clear, maybe tell people.
So Chagat, which are the imaginative, the emotional spheres, right? In other words, again, in case anyone doesn't know, so our bodies are microcosms of how God manifests. So there's our super rational, right? The crown of our head, the keter of our head, is what we were talking about before, is above intellect. That's physiologically. That's the top of our head, right? That's the parts of the brain that's higher than understanding. So that's the part of the body that corresponds to the preconscious, unconscious, subconscious. That's the keter, that's the crown. That's what all of psychology is trying to dive into there. Right? Our conscious mind is the tip of the iceberg. So the keter is the crown. This part of the head symbolizes the crown, means what transcends conscious understanding. So that's keser. Then there's into the body, the head is Chabad, Chochmah Bina Das, which are what we would call discursive understanding, right? That's our intellect. Then we have the 6 emotion, the chest, which contains the 6 emotions of Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, love, connection, love, feeling of awe. Love is being propelled towards something, awe is being propelled away from something. Tiferes is opening oneself up to the other, compassion. Netzach is enduring in that connection. Hod is being able to submit to something, letting it overtake you. And Yesod is having a deep connection to it. So it's the emotional faculties that's in the chest, in the hands, etc. And then the lower spheres of the lower parts of the body, below the belly button, etc. And that's how, so to speak, how God manifests from God's infinite light to the world as well in that figure, and we're a microcosm of that. So what Regina is referring to is that because Hasidus is that emergence of God's essence to be revealed in such an impactful, radical, imminent, deep way, so that is reflected in different streams of Hasidus. So Breslov is Keser, is Emunah, Chabad is intellect, and the other Hasidic groups are focused on emotion more, on the emotional experience. I don't remember that conversation with Rebbe Rab per se, because I would have argued with him if he would have said that, because Breslov is, as far as I'm concerned, is Keser, but I don't know what they say, but for sure, Chabad, as opposed to the other Hasidic groups, is Chagas. The other Hasidic groups focus on the emotional thing, which is why their focus is more on, the singing and the dancing and etc. But let's not, one second, I don't want to focus more on that right now, because I want to actually begin the text. So any more questions that have to do with what we've spoken about until now, to understand what we've spoken about until now?
But just to clarify, just on on this point, because I think a lot of people associate Breslov with joy and simcha, being besimcha.
All of Hasidim is about joy. There's no such thing as, the Baal Shem Tov was joy. Joy is, what's joy? Joy is the soul not being stuck in any particular aspect of it. Joy is the soul revealed as is. That's why joy, what's joy? The more joy you have, the more parts of your body it overtakes. That's why when you're happy, you smile. When you're really happy, what do? You clap. When you're really joyous, you dance. Joy is the revelation of the soul. So if you're happy, it comes down, it penetrates your head. If you're really happy, it goes down further down in your body and you clap. And if you're really happy, you dance, it overtakes your feet. So all the Hasidus, all the Kabbalists, all the mystics spoke about joy. That's everyone. And Chagas is not joy. Chagas is emotions. There's a difference between joy and emotions. But let's leave that for now. Let's see inside. So the bottom line of what we're learning, the point I'm trying to say is that when we learn Likkutei Maharan, and forget, no matter how much we actually get to or not, Rebbe Nachman wants you to come off with an emotional resonance, with an imaginative resonance, an emotional resonance that's not about necessarily understanding. Okay? So let's see. So this Torah is 64, and again, that's why it doesn't matter which Torah we're starting with. The reason I picked this Torah to start with is because, first of all, Malka asked me to give this shir when it was Parshas Bo, it was that week's Parsha. And it's also a very, very beautiful, deep idea. So the beginning of it, it's on Parshas Bo. That's but when Rebbe Nachman says a Torah, it could be sometimes in a pasuk in Chumash, it could be on a Gemara, it could be just starting with not based on any particular thing. So this Torah happens to be based on Parshas Bo, on the first psukim of Parshas Bo, which he only really speaks about in 64:3, and that was the third chapter of this Torah. So we're not going to get into it now because it's not really relevant to get into a depth, because he's going to get to it. We're not going to get to it today. We'll come back to it. But the point that I want to the main idea of the Torah is the three words, which you all know, Bo El Paro. Bo El Paro. Come to Paro. Which is a very deep connection of three words. And you could just use those three words as a mantra and let your imagination go wild with that. What does it mean that God is telling you, come to Paro? Paro, of course, Paro is the keser of Klippa. That's why Paro is the letters Ha'oref. Ha'oref is the back of the neck. Ha'oref. Paro is the letters Ha'oref. The Ha'oref, the back of the neck is the Oref, right? Kshay Oref. Am Kshay Oref. We're known as a stiff-necked nation. Am Kshay Oref. What's the back of the neck? It's the antithesis of keser. It's when the imagination goes down the spinal cord the wrong direction. So Paro, Hashem is saying to you, Bo El Paro. Come to Paro. Come with me to Paro. So says Rebbe Nachman like this. So again, even without explaining, this is not about explaining, just, to try to understand that whatever power there is in your life, you're being told by God, come with me to it. So I see the Hebrew over here is a little it's a little messed up. The Hebrew is a little messed up. Because I don't know how that happened, but it's sometimes when you download from Sfaria, the Hebrew comes out really weird. I mean the English, but the Hebrew is good. So the English is good. So I'm gonna read the Hebrew from the Likkutei Maharan. It's not really, like I'm saying, the Hebrew is a little mumble jumbled over here, which might be very fitting after the past half hour that I just explained. And but the English is good. Do you have?
Yeah, no,
yeah.
Okay. I can listen to it. Anyways,
Says Rebbe Nachman. Oh.
Do you want to say anything about Rabbi Nachman?
What?
Do you want to say anything about Rabbi Nachman? Later, not relevant. Okay.
Says Rebbe Nachman, what does it mean by El Paro? What does it mean that you're being told to come to Paro? Hashem is saying, come with me to Paro. Come with me. Come with me to Paro. Ki Hashem yizbarach machmas rachmanusai baras ha'olam. God created the world as a consequence of His compassion. Rachmanuso, His compassion. God created the world as a consequence of His compassion. So, first of all, everyone understands that Rebbe Nachman is not talking here about the philosophy of why God created the world. In Tanya, chapter 36, the Alter Rebbe says the purpose God created the world, and Chassidus Chabad as a theme will say again and again, the purpose God created the world was to make the world a dwelling place for God. Rebbe Nachman, and Chabad will explain, there are many other answers given for why the world was created, but that's the ultimate one. Rebbe Nachman will say many of those different reasons. You know what I'm saying? No, Chabad will say there are many reasons given, but this is the ultimate one. Why? All those reasons are true. All of them are emes. But then there's emes lamito. There's truth and there's ultimate truth, which we're not going to explain now. But in Chabad, there's a focus on what's the theology of why God created the world. Dir b'tachtoinim. To make the world a dwelling place for God. Dir b'tachtoinim. So Chabad is all about dir b'tachtoinim. Make the world a dwelling place for God. Make the world, reveal God in the world. Reveal God in the world, which is what we were saying. That's what Chabad is. Dir b'tachtoinim. Make the world a dwelling place for God. Make your intellect a dwelling place for God. Make every city in the world into a Chabad house. Make the world a dwelling place for God. That's what Mashiach is, right? And then Chabad will say, but if you look at many others from, you'll see many other reasons that God created the world. Because He wanted to reveal His kindness, because He wanted to reveal His love, because He wanted that we should be able to earn it, that we shouldn't receive it. You know, there are many other reasons given. So Rebbe Nachman is not looking here for theology. He wants you to feel that when you look at the world, Rebbe Nachman just wants you to feel that the world is God's compassion. He's not looking into theology. That's what I was trying to explain. He's not looking for theology. He wants you to feel that the world is God's compassion. That when you look at the world, you're looking at God's rachmanis. Machmas rachmanusai. Now, what is compassion? What is rachmanis? When we say the world is God's compassion, that God created the world as a consequence of His compassion, what does that mean? What is compassion? I feel like Socrates now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the Socratic dialogues is essentially Socrates just saying words like truth, justice, and like what do they mean, and nobody could explain.
For compassion, is being able to feel for another person's pain.
Good.
Among other things. But
Good.
in other words, not just being focused on yourself, your feelings, but being able to feel what other people might be feeling.
Beautiful. That's a great definition. To feel what other people are feeling. To sort of direct your soul to the other, right? To feel, to allow what the other is feeling into yourself, right? Which is why, of course, in Hebrew, yeah?
No, sorry, Rabbi. I was going to say that also maybe it's that, God doesn't owe us anything. And
You're already making a like a calculation. I'm just asking what Rachmanis means. Like, what does the word mean, compassion? So you're saying God doesn't owe us anything, therefore?
everything is from His extreme kindness.
So that's kindness. That's not the same as compassion. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to just focus on compassion. There are places that it says in Kabbalah, God created the world because of His kindness. That's not the same as compassion. That's what I'm trying to say. Like there's a reason Rebbe Nachman is saying now, I want you to look at the world as compassion, not as kindness. Because what's compassion? So, I don't know your name, but the said that compassion is feeling the other, which is why the word in Hebrew for compassion, rachamim, mercy, is the same word as rechem, womb, right? A womb, a woman's womb is called a rechem. Rachamim is literally a word of having a womb in you for another, incubating another, so to speak, being able to feel and carry the other. That's compassion. So what does it mean to say that God created the world out of compassion?
That's what he's saying, that God created the world out of
Yeah,
compassion.
look inside.
Like a place for himself.
Look inside. You don't have a thing? And look. God created the world as a consequence of compassion. Let's read a little further. He created the world because of His compassion. He wanted to reveal His compassion. Follow me in English if you can't in the Hebrew. And if He had not created the world, if creation had not taken place, to whom would He have shown His compassion? He therefore created the entire creation, from the inception of Atzilus, which of course is the highest world, all the way down to the center point of the corporeal world, meaning our physical world, in order to display His compassion. So literally, He created the world to display His compassion. What does compassion mean? How do we define it? Rechem, incubating the other, allowing them to feel the other. Did you want to say something else? No? Feeling the other, to feel the other, and to be able to connect to the other, to not just feel your own emotions, but to feel the other. So what does it mean that God wanted to show His compassion?
Experience Himself through us.
Experience Himself through us and allow us to experience Him. to have that mutual connection, that dveikus, right? That's why in Kabbalah, the center line, das, tiferes, which is compassion, and yesod, it's all connection to the other. Das, the middle line of a person, of the body. Right? Chesed, the right side of the body, is going towards the other. The left side of the body is being propelled away from the other. Ava and Yira. The middle line is the other in me, or me and the other, connection. That's why it's the middle line is das, as opposed to Chachma and Bina, which we won't get into, but Chachma and Bina is a right and a left. Das, which is das, Tiferes, which is the middle line. Tiferes is the heart, the center heart. So like in the chakras, it's the middle line, is Tiferes. And Yesod, and connection, physical connection. It's all that same idea. So what does it mean that Hashem wanted to reveal His Rahmanas? He wanted to feel us. He wanted to show how He could feel us all the time. How He could always feel us. Bo el Paro. Come with me to Paro. So just to begin, because I know that it was brought up. Look at the picture that I asked you to look at before. So you'll notice Rebbe Nachman used the word from the inception of Atzilus all the way down to the center point of the corporeal world. So in the picture over there, I just want you right now to look at the fact that in those circles, which we'll explain shortly more what they are, but I want you to see that they are, as they're getting further into the center point, there's a list of the different worlds. Do you see that? In the outer circle is Adam Kadmon, which means primordial man. Then is Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, and the center lane is Asiya. See that?
What did you say? Adam Kadmon?
Look inside the picture that I asked you that I didn't, but now I am asking you to focus on.
No, but what is Adam Kadmon?
It means primordial man.
What does that mean?
I mean, you have a few years. we could. I'm not right now explaining what any of it means. I just want you to understand they're different worlds. They're 5 worlds. Okay, and Kabbalah, really, the answer to your question, what it means, is what all of Kabbalah is about. Kabbalah answers your question. What is Adam Kadmon? And literally, that's what there are thousands of pages of Kabbalah about. But the idea is to first get the structure, that there are these different worlds, right? Around the outside of the circles is God's infinite light. In this picture, it's a pretty nifty picture, but it's still finite, because everyone looking at the picture? Yeah. Right, look at the picture. So in the picture, you'll see around it are still stars and stuff, which obviously is not accurate. That's not accurate about this picture. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because stars are way inside by Asiya. Okay? By the way, in the picture also, the center point is where we are, which is the lowest level of Asiya. Okay? These 5 worlds, by the way, correspond to the 4 letters of God's name. That's why sometimes you see that it says there are 4 worlds, and sometimes you'll see there are 5. Adam Kadmon, it's not so clear. It's not really a world the way that the other worlds are worlds, but that's why there are 4 letters of God's name. The lower Hey is Asiya. In ascending, the Vav is Yitzir, the higher Hey is Bria, the Yud is Atzilus, and the thorn on the Yud is Keser. But the reason I'm showing it to you is because what the Rebbe Nachman is using the words, at this point I'm showing it to you, because we're gonna need it more, but Rebbe Nachman is using the words, remember he said, from the inception of Atzilus all the way down to the center point, right, in Hebrew. The words in Hebrew, what's center point? Nekudat HaMerkaz. If you look in the Hebrew, Nekudat HaMerkaz shel Olam HaGashmi. Nekudat HaMerkaz. Everyone know in modern Hebrew what that means, right? What's Nekudat HaMerkaz? Literally the center point of Olam HaGashmi. Now, but you understand, it's not just Rebbe Nachman doesn't just want you to be looking at the map. Chabad will tell you, spend 3 hours staring at the map. Rebbe Nachman is saying, you have to focus, what is the Nekudat HaMerkaz? Lamaisa. Imaginative-wise. What is Nekudat HaMerkaz? Me. I'm the Nekudat HaMerkaz. Every one of us in our own brain, in our own mind, inside of us, is the Nekudat HaMerkaz. Right? I have to realize that God's Rachmanis goes from Atzilus all the way down to me where I am. Boel Paro. Right? It's one of the sad aspects of the human condition is that no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we always feel ourselves as the center of the universe. Literally. We can't help it. We experience reality as around us. Like we can't get out of that. And the existentialists speak a lot about that literally everyone else in the world is an object to me. I'm the subject, everyone else is an object. We're all the Nekudat HaMerkaz, right? So that's the existentialists will speak about that, the angst that comes from that. But Rebbe Nachman is saying the opposite. That if you look at this picture and you focus the idea of that from all the highest worlds to the Nekudat HaMerkaz, all the way to me, the center point where I am, it's to feel God's compassion. It's to feel God's compassion. Whatever paro, whatever Nekudat HaMerkaz I am, it's to feel God's compassion. Says Rebbe Nachman further, I'm going to go 5 more minutes, and then I'll take questions. I know we started a bit late, so I'm going to go 5 more minutes till 9:05, and then I'll take questions. But I want to go a little further. Is there any questions that I said until now? That's anything that's not understood or...
Did you say the purpose of the Nekudat Merkaz is to feel God's compassion? Is that how you phrase it?
No, I phrased it that we are the Nekudat Merkaz.
We are
the Nekudat Merkaz.
And how does that relate to
And
God's
the purpose
compassion?
the purpose that God created all of the world, all the way from the highest level of Atzilus, all the way to wherever I am, is all about His compassion. So whether the highest to the lowest, whether you're feeling God's light in a revealed way in the Beis HaMikdash, or you're suffering in some mud in Gaza, it's all His compassion. Whatever paro you are, boel paro, it's God's compassion. Again, not that we could understand it. Again, this isn't about understanding. It's somehow being able to imagine that somehow God is trying to hug you and feel you and connect to you, incubate you in any paro. Let's see further.
Can you clarify how Oref and how Paro is connected to? You
It's
said
the
it
same
very
letters.
quickly. No, I understand. But what's the meaning of Ha'oref again?
It's the
back of the neck, but
right,
connected to this idea.
That it's the imagination not being used in a holy way. It's going through the center point of the body, not the spinal cord, not in the way of holiness.
So what does that mean to go back to Paro?
Nope. Well, so I didn't bring that back to the body. The
Why
boel
did you just
paro.
say-
No,
okay.
the boel. I was just talking about power in the body. That's one thing. Power in the body. That's where it is.
Okay.
Now, there's another thing that Rebbe Nachman is talking about paro as a general idea of any difficult situation.
Got it.
Could be in the body, could be in life,
Yeah.
could be in anything. Whatever your paro is, it could be something you're experiencing in your head. Right? We know, what's paro. There's no paro as difficult as the paro inside our heads. There's no master, there's no tyrant that could ever be as cruel as the paro inside our head. That could also be a paro. Right? There's no human beings can never make up a prison cell as difficult as what a person's mind could become if one goes into that place of paro. What?
Is you saying Breslov is more like from the neck down? It's more your emotions and.
I sort of went. I'll get back to that later. I sort of went on now. So let's just try to focus. I'm sorry, I want to try to keep it focused. But I'll get back to your question, Ellie, very soon. But let's go a little further inside. So Rebbe Nachman says, so Hashem wanted to reveal His Rachmanis, and that's the reason He created all of the worlds from the highest level all the way down to the center point. Says Rebbe Nachman, V'kasher ratz Hashem yizbarach livras ha'olam. So when God wanted to create the world to reveal His compassion, He wanted to come into our paros. He wanted to feel what we feel. So what did He do? Look inside. Yeah, when God wanted to create the world, when God wanted to create the world, look in the English, look inside. There was no place in which to create it, since there was nothing but Ein Sof. Let's keep reading, and then I'll explain. Al kain tzimtzum es ha'or l'tzdodin. And therefore He contracted the light to the sides. And through this contraction, the vacated space was made. And And within this vacated space, nishavu kol hayomim v'hamidus shembrias ha'olam, all time and space came into existence, this being the creation of the world. So look back at the picture in the flyer. Look again at the picture in the flyer, please. That the picture I was asking you to look at. Look at the picture. So what you're looking at over here right now is what's called in Kabbalah after Tzimtzum. What you're looking at right now, which is a picture that Kabbalah begins with, is a picture after Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum is what we just read from Rebbe Nachman. Contraction, meaning that before God created the world, there was just His infinite light. And so, like Rebbe Nachman says, there was no place in which to create it. Lo haya makom. There was no place to create the world because there was just His infinite light. So this didn't exist yet. This is a map after Tzimtzum. When He vacated His infinite light. But before He did that, there was no place for the world to exist, right? And that's the words Kabbalah uses. There was no place for the world to exist. And I want to leave you with this last idea. What does it mean in Kabbalah, there was no place for the world to exist? When the God's infinite light, there was no place. It's too crowded? It's like a subway during rush hour. You ever see those videos in Japan where they stuff people into the subways, right? So is that what it means? God's infinite light. And these are the words Kabbalah uses. There was no place for worlds to exist. Lo haya makom. Lo haya makom lebriat olamot. Haya orin sof meir. V'lo haya makom lebrias ha'olamus. There was the revelation of God's infinite light. There was no place for worlds to exist. What does it mean there was no place? It was too crowded?
No, it was just light. They don't have...
When you say light, what kind of light? Do you mean like an electric plant?
No.
Chas v'shalom, right? Because your light in this world is physical.
Right. I think that it didn't have the water, didn't have the earth, didn't have anything, has just light, power.
Right. So, but it's saying that what it's saying is that the reason that there couldn't yet be water or anything else was because God's infinite light was revealed. He didn't yet contract it and remove it. And so since He didn't, there couldn't yet be creation of anything because since His infinite light was revealed, there was no place for anything to exist. So I'm asking to focus, what do these words mean? There was no place for anything to exist because of His infinite light. What do those words mean?
Couldn't have anything other than Him.
Oh, so very good. So most people would usually say it's so strong and so intense we can't tolerate that. What in the world does that mean? That's assuming that God's light is something like a volcano or the sun or something. These are all physical things. What do you mean we can't tolerate it? What does that mean? Like we'll blow up? What is? I'm just trying. I'm trying to get everyone to just try to expand your mind a little. Don't just try to answer the question. Just listen to what I'm trying to say. Godliness is not physical, and it's also not something like when you say it's too intense. What does that mean, Lamaisa? I know that that's the words we always use. It's too intense, we couldn't be able to handle it. What is it? Was like an electric power plant? What does it mean it's too intense? Huh?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So the problem is that we all imagine like Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? But that's a silly... I'll give you an example. You know when God's light was so intense that Taka, we died from it? Har Sinai. Mamash this week's Parsha. The Gemara says, Parch Neshmas, and their souls went out. What does that mean? Was it like Raiders of the Lost Ark? Did we melt like the Nazis? What does it mean that our souls went out? Come on, we have to think a little deeper. I'm trying to say, when you learn Kabbalah or Pnimius Satar, we have to mature in the way we think of things. We have to go a little beyond. What does it mean the souls went out? It was like such an intense revelation. It was like, bam, I couldn't handle it. It's a deeper thing. What does it mean? It means that what does it mean there was no place for anything to exist? It's like, in a deeper way, it means that like if I were to say to you, is there a place to say 1 + 1 = 3? Is there a place to say such a thing? You just said it. I said it, but okay. But is there right? Is there a place to understand 1 + 1 = 3? Is there a place if I say to you like, there's no place for such a behavior over here? When a person acts inappropriately, there's no place for such a behavior over here. What do I mean there's no place? It's too crowded? What does it mean there's no place for it over here? It means that the place negates the ability of that to be. Meaning, when God's infinite light is revealed, then there can't be a feeling of anything other than God's infinite light because that is truth. Even now, all that exists is God's infinite light. So when I say there's no place, it means it's negated from being able to be because there can't be a feeling of separateness. By Matan Torah, what does it mean our souls went out? We no longer felt as separate from God. We became absorbed into truth. So when I say there's no place for the Nekudat HaMerkaz, there's no place for the center point. Center point is Paro, is the opposite of when Hashem's infinite light is revealed. Hashem's infinite light is revealed means that Einod Mavado, only God exists, which is true now also. But when that's revealed, there's no place for anything to exist. What do you mean there's no place? There's no possibility. That's what I'm saying. There's no place to say 1 plus 1 equals. Your mind doesn't have a place to understand 1 plus 1 equals 3. There's no place for such an idea. There's no place for such a behavior. Meaning, one second, it's negated. It's not that it's too crowded. It's negated from being able to exist, such a behavior over here. So when I say there's no place for anything other than God's infinite light, as long as God's infinite light is revealed, there can't be an other than God. There can't be separateness. There can't be anything other than Hashem, which is true now also. So, but in order for there to be a paro, because God wanted to reveal His compassion, by definition, how do you reveal compassion? There has to be an other. You can't have compassion unless there's an other. Unless there's an Nekudat HaMerkaz, that there is place for an Nekudat HaMerkaz. As long as God's infinite light is revealed, then I feel truth, then I'm just part of Hashem. Then I'm never in Paro. Or I feel the truth of Boro Paro, that Hashem is the Paro too. So there can never be the compassionate feeling of God feeling us as Paro down here below. To be able to have compassion for us. Real compassion you really have for somebody that's suffering, or that's really like in a lowly state. We feel compassion for someone that's not necessarily horrible suffering, but like when you see a puppy that's crying, you have compassion. Compassion comes from somebody in a place of difficulty at some level, right? You have to incubate, like even a Rachmanis a rechem of a mother, but by definition, you need a rechem because the child is defenseless, which is what arouses the compassion. It's the defenselessness of the child is what arouses the compassion. So the compassion necessitates that there should be an other, an Nekudat HaMerkaz. So as long as God's infinite light is revealed, you can't have this downchaining that we have in this picture over here. This picture, to be able to go from God's infinite light through Adam Kadmon and Atzilus all the way to get to me where I am now, for God to have compassion for me, that can't be without tzimtzum. Tough. Any questions? Yes. Yes.
Are you able to explain again? Because I loved it when I came to Tanya at the Vadat, and how you explained it. Like I loved it. It made so much right in the however we can grasp it. Like when you said, imagine a square, and inside there is a circle.
Yeah. Well, that's this. That's this picture.
Yes.
That's this picture.
Yeah. But you know how you said like imagine, and then you take out, and then from a
So that's Mitzvah Shem. That's Mitzvah Shem next week. That's next week. I mean, or whenever next time we do it, because that's a whole. In other words, you see, this week, the first thing we learned today from Nachman is why God did Tzimtzum. What you're talking about is what Tzimtzum actually is, which we don't have time to get to. But this week we learned why did God do Tzimtzum? For compassion, because He wanted to feel you. Because He wanted you to be in a paro. He wanted to be able you to feel Him in every paro. He wanted you to be able to feel yourself in God's womb, even when you're by paro. So that's why He did tzimtzum. What you're talking about, what I spoke about in shul, is to understand what tzimtzum is. Which, by the way, Rebbe Nachman doesn't explain. For that, you talking in Chabad. But I will, Mitzvah Shem, explain it enough next week for able to relate to this in a better way.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you're saying is just any suffering?
Yeah, in a general way. Yeah.
So, Rabbi, this is all Emuna. That's it.
Yeah, I mean that's all. That's all there is. Kol mitzvahs. It's a pasuk in Tehillim. Kol mitzvahs. Yeah.
But then He also created suffering just so that He can create compassion.
Yeah,
It seems
exactly.
a little,
He made the compassion. He made the suffering in order to be able to have compassion. Which, if you're starting already to ask, that doesn't make sense. That's already Chabad.
Yeah, more
which is
expensive.
why the Alter Rebbe says that can't be the ultimate purpose of creation. Exactly for what you're thinking. In other words, the Alter Rebbe says, Chabad says, it can't be that the ultimate purpose of creation is compassion, because it would have been much nicer just not to create the suffering to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why that's not the ultimate.
It seems like
Exactly. So that's why I said at length before. That's why Rebbe Nachman is not talking theology. You understand what I'm saying?
What's the benefit of even thinking about these things?
Because it's true. Because there's levels of truth that are not ultimate truth, right? There are different levels where you have to always have just absolute ultimate truth. I mean, you could,
And
I know we like to be intense, but
when you're suffering, it doesn't help to hear. Well, that's not the ultimate reason anyway. Like you need to hear something like this when you're suffering.
Right, true, true.
Can I just ask, maybe it's not for now because you're about to finish, but I want to know what the difference between the Zohar is and the Tanya.
It's a little hard to answer that in less than at least 5 minutes.
I don't expect you to do it right now.
Okay.
At some point, I would like to hear, what it is.
Well, okay. All right. Okay, we will.
I can understand why people could have a problem with Breslov because of the imaginative side of it. And I think that the thing that qualifies it is that there has to be a orientation towards truth in that imagination. Because if you just had imagination without an orientation towards truth, then that would be like sorcery, or that would be something dark magic.
Well, that's why you need the tzaddik.
Right, but I'm saying there's like an element of what you were saying that I think is missing, which is that the imaginative quality has to be oriented towards truth.
Yes.
In order for this whole system.
Thank you for Andrew. Thank you for the clarification. Yes, there has to be a kavana. There has to be the kavana, the intention. When you set an intention, what does kavana mean? We always talk about kavana. What is the word? How do you translate kavana? Intention. But what does the word literally mean?
Have in mind.
No, that's how we usually translate it, but that's not what the word literally means. We usually say have in mind. What kivun? What's a kivun? Direction. Lechaven means to direct something. Kavana literally means the way the focus where you're directing your consciousness to. That is what kavana means. Lechaven. I'm directing my consciousness towards this. So what Rabbi Avram is saying, which is true, is that as in anything, when you do something, it has to be lechaven l'shem shemaim ta'ashem. But certainly when it comes to rectifying the imagination, because Rebbe Nachman says that it is so dangerous, that's why Likkutei Maharan is so dangerous. That's why I should say, and maybe I should have said to begin with, that there are Hasidic groups that won't learn Likkutei Maharan. I mean, I know that in Square, in New Square, they have it, they have Likkutei Maharan, but they have it, sealed shut. In other words, they know it's holy, but you're not allowed to learn it. And I heard there's a recording, actually somebody sent it to me, I could send it to you if you'd like. Somebody sent me a recording of Shlomo Carlebach talking about Breslov Chassidus and saying that he heard from Reb Tzvi Yehuda, the son of Rav Kook, who heard from his father, Rav Kook, that Breslov Chassidus is like drugs. It's good for a little, but you have to be careful not to overdose. And I have a recording of Shlomo Carlebach saying, if anyone wants, I could send it to you. Exactly because of what you're saying. Because of the fact that it is so wild in that way. It is like that. And that's, by the way, why this Torah, actually, if you're already bringing it up, what are the words in the pasuk before Boel Paro? Vayom Hashem al Moshe Boel Paro. So that is exactly what he's going to talk about later. That to do the Boel Paro, you need the Vayom Hashem al Moshe. You need the tzaddik. You need a tzaddik to be able to be a guide. Exactly because of that. Vayom Hashem al Moshe Boel Paro. So Nachman's going to say, to be able to do this, you have to have a tzaddik.
You have to have a tzaddik.
Yeah, Vayom Hashem al Moshe Boel Paro. Yeah, Malka.
Kabbalah also is something that you have to be careful when you learn it, and it also has to be very guided. So would you say that it's the closest to Kabbalah?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would say that the very much so that Reb Nachman, I've heard from people that are more expert in Breslov than I am, that Reb Nachman's biggest inspiration is the Tikkunei Zohar. The Tikkunei, within the Zohar, it's already late, but in the Tikkunei, so the Zohar is a whole big thing. And in the Zohar, there are sections of the Zohar. The Tikkunei Zohar is the beginning of the Zohar. Mitzvah Hashem, so I'm now going to make an official commercial for Lev Ladas. So when Shabbos starts getting late again, when the long Shabbos day, so we learn Zohar before Mincha, Shabbos afternoon by us. And Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to learn, when we're going to start with the Tikkunei Zohar. The Tikkunei Zohar is the beginning of the Zohar, and what it is 70 perushim on the word Bereshis. 70 perushim on the word Bereshis. And but the way that it's written is exactly the way we were describing before Breslov as being very imaginative, so that's Tikkunei Zohar. So the Rebbe Nachman is very similar in style to the Zohar. That is very much an inspiration because again, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was also that place of vision. Yeah.
Sure.
Tough.